Myanmar's summer felt like a furnace. Many of the invading Chinese soldiers abandoned their heavy coats and armor, while others endured the heat to protect themselves from the jungle's pest. The imperial army of the Manchu Qing dynasty had marched through thick jungles and treacherous hills, only to be trapped in this forsaken land. Empty wagons littered the route, their supplies long since eaten. Foraging parties rode off, only to return with fewer men each time. The sentries stared warily into the jungle to guard what remained of their supplies. From the rear, terrifying drumbeats thundered. The Burmese were coming. The Sino-Burmese War of the 18th century is not well known in military history, but it has lasting consequences to the regional balance of power and laid the foundations to the modern borders between Myanmar and China. The borders have always been vaguely defined, and the Shan states that exist between the two have paid tributes to both Ava and Beijing. During the decline of the Burmese Tanggu dynasty, the Chinese had attempted to establish a tighter control over the borders. The Chinese government faced fierce resistance from the local Shans, but without support from Ava, most Shans were increasingly siding with the more powerful Beijing. However, in 1752, a new Burmese dynasty under King Alampia launched a major expedition to re-establish the traditional control over the region. Those Shan lords who had sided with China were expelled and forced to take refuge in Kunming. As a result, the Chinese imperial court ordered the reconquest of these lands in 1759. The Qinglong Emperor appointed Liu Jiao, a respected scholarly minister from the capital, to deal with the Shan issue once and for all. The Yunnan government originally followed the policy of using barbarians to defeat barbarians and supported pro-Chinese nobility against the Burmese crown. However, the battle-hardened Burmese military was able to maintain a firm grip in the region. At Kunming, Liu assessed that the use of these Taishan militia alone was not going to work, and he needed to commit regular imperial troops. In early 1765, Burmese forces left for the great invasion of Ayutthaya, leaving only token garrisons throughout the kingdom. With the main Burmese army gone, Liu used the minor trade disputes between the local Chinese and Burmese merchants as an excuse to order the invasion of the Shan state of Jiangdong in December 1765. Chinese-aligned Taishan militia marched alongside 3,000 imperial troops of the Green Standard Army, and they laid siege to the capital of Jiangdong. Jiangdong was defended by a Burmese loyal Shan militia and reinforced with elements of the Burmese Royal Army under General Nemyo Situ. The numbers provided by the Burmese Royal Chronicles are highly exaggerated. Therefore, the following assessment is made based on the modern estimates by other historians. The Chinese army was around 5,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry, while the Burmese forces were around 2,000 infantry, 200 cavalry, and 20 elephants. According to the translation made by Colonel Henry Burney, a British officer, the Chinese cavalry began the battle by charging the Burmese lines. As the Chinese horsemen lowered their lances and galloped forward, massive shapes began to materialize in the distance. When they neared, the Burmese war elephants raised their trunks and trumpeted. The inexperienced Chinese horsemen panicked at the sound and sight of the great beasts and fled from the field. As horsemen clashed into their foot soldiers, disrupting formations and battle ranks. Taking advantage of the chaos, Burmese infantry and cavalry charged the Chinese lines and routed them from the field. These forces continued to pursue the Chinese into Yunnan itself, where in a major pitched battle, the imperial commander was killed and the army was broken. As the Chinese had enjoyed easy victories against the previously weakened Burmese dynasty, the Jiangdong campaign proved to be a great shock. Liu, in his embarrassment, committed suicide rather than face the emperor's wrath. The Qinglong emperor was enraged nevertheless. Dealing with these Mian, the Chinese term for the Burmese, was now a matter of imperial prestige. He appointed Yang Yin-ju, an experienced frontier officer with long service in Xinjiang and Guangzhou, and arrived in the summer of 1766 to take command. Unlike Liu's invasion of Jiangdong in the Shan lands, Yang was determined to strike Upper Burma directly and place a Qing claimant on the Burmese throne. A large force of 30,000 men and 15,000 regulars of the Green Standard Army were to march to the border city Upper Mo. From there, they would move along the Irrawaddy River to the Burmese capital of Ava. Qing army at first seemed unstoppable, crushing most of the local resistance. They took Burmese with little difficulty and established a supply line there. They also established a long trail of garrisons to guard the supply line. First real resistance came at the Burmese stockade near the village of Gangtong. With superior numbers and equipment, the Qing forces attempted to storm the fort. However, they suddenly found themselves under heavy artillery and musket fire. Despite heavy assaults, the fort held firm, and the Imperial Army was forced to lay siege to it. The fort was led by Bala Mindin, one of the finest Burmese officers of his age. Furthermore, the veteran Burmese garrison included French-led European gunners. The defenders threw back attack after attack and inflicted very heavy losses on the Qing forces. Strategically, the Qing forces could not ignore Gangtong and march into Upper Burma, as it would lead the garrison to attack their supply lines at Burmese. This deadlock did not favor the Chinese, who were utterly unprepared to fight in the tropical weather of northern Burma. Thousands of imperial soldiers were reported to be struck down by cholera, dysentery, and malaria. Chinese report even stated that 800 out of 1,000 soldiers in one particular garrison had died of disease and another 100 were ill. Furthermore, the garrisons that were left to guard the supply lines began to stop reporting. Qing scouts also began to report troop movements in the jungle. The minimal resistance had been a trap. Burmese had long suspected the invasion and were prepared. The king, Simbushin, the second son of Olympia, had ordered Bala Mindin to give up Burmese and stay in Gangtong Fort to hold the Chinese off. Meanwhile, other Burmese armies would advance north. His plan was to lure the Chinese into Burmese territory and then surround them. One Burmese army under General Nemyo Situ waited near Burmese, while another army under Mahatihatura was sent north to gather northern levies and from there make its way down towards Burmese. Seeing that the Chinese were greatly weakened, Nemyo Situ struck the garrison at Burmese from the river. With the fall of Burmese, the entire imperial invasion force was cut off from all supplies. The Chinese made several attempts to retake Burmese, but were repelled at the mouth of the river. Light-footed Burmese infantry were able to navigate the jungles and resupply the Gangtong fort. More importantly, they were able to keep all the commanders updated with the latest information. Seeing an opportunity to strike, Bala Mindin coordinated with Nemyo Situ to launch a major offensive. As Nemyo Situ's army attacked the Chinese from the rear, Bala Mindin's forces sallied out of Gangtong fort. Threatened to be trapped in the region, the Chinese were forced to abandon the siege. They tried to retreat back into Yunnan, but the way was blocked by Burmese and Shan levies under Mahatihatura. The two other Burmese armies also followed up. Sick, tired, and exhausted, the Chinese soldiers could do little as the Burmese armies converged all around the expedition and utterly annihilated it. The Burmese had won an astonishing victory using their knowledge of local terrain and climate against a superior foe. As victorious Burmese armies returned to Ava with captured guns, muskets, and prisoners, the Chinese court fumed. Governor Yang began resorting to lies that the war had been won, and the Burmese, after losing 10,000 men, had sued for peace. The Qinglong Emperor, however, realized the falsity of the report and ordered Yang back to Beijing. On his arrival, Yang committed suicide at the order of the emperor. In Burma, King Simbushin reveled at the simultaneous victories against Ayodhya and China. Little did he know that he would soon be fighting for the very survival of his newly established empire, as the Chinese prepared the most serious invasion yet. Join us next time as the Sino-Burmese War continues and intensifies, as the Burmese face the true might of the Qing Empire.